In the early morning, a janitor held his cleaning tools and pressed the elevator button. Waking up early to work, he couldn't stop yawning. As the elevator doors opened, something sticky flew onto his face. But when he opened his eyes wide, he was frightened to paralysis by the GHT of a severed half of a body left in the elevator cabin. The police quickly sealed off the scene after receiving the report. Officer Bob arrived at the scene first, and looked down at the upper half of the body lying on the ground, couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Then Officer Mike, who arrived late, said, "I was partying in Shinjuku Sancome last night. I heard someone got cut in half here." At that moment, Officer Tom, who also arrived late, appeared behind Mike and said, "Sorry, I am late." Mike turned around and greeted Tom, and they then started to exchange greetings. After a round of greetings, Mike picked up the victim's phone from beside him, and looked at the screensaver of a young girl. He asked Tom, "Who is this?" Tom bent down to take a look and replied, "It's Amelia, a member of the idol group Fairy." After hearing this, Mike asked in confusion, "Are you still idolizing celebrities at your age?" Tom smiled and said, "Don't you think she's cute?" In the police station's conference room, the detectives from the Criminal Investigation Division analyzed the case of the elevator bisecting incident. The deceased, August, 32 years old, was an employee of a loan company on the 4th floor of the building where the incident occurred. The cause of death was multiple bruises and excessive blood loss from being bisected. Besides a phone and a wallet, there was nothing particularly notable among the belongings left behind. The estimated time of death was around 3 a.m. today. We have confirmed the victim's CL knockout time, which was around 9 p.m. the previous day. It appears that Mr. Amano slipped and fell in the elevator after work, and coincidentally, the elevator malfunctioned at that moment, resulting in the gruesome scene resembling a guillotine. After hearing Bob's report, the police officers felt a twinge of back pain, but Tom suddenly raised a question. "I think this reasoning generally holds up, with the gap between the clock-out time at 9 p.m. and the time of death, at 3 a.m. the next day seems too long. Take a look at the victim's photo. All of his fingernails have fallen off, and there are deep scratch marks all over the floor. So, was the elevator descending very slowly?" Seeing that their colleagues didn't understand Tom's words, Mike immediately added, "In other words, when the victim left the company and entered the elevator, he made a mistake in operating it, causing the elevator to stop on the wrong floor. Determined to escape from the elevator, he squeezed his body through the gap. However, when he was halfway through climbing out, the elevator slowly started descending. After 6 hours of this slow descent, he was eventually bisected and died. So, was this accident caused by improper operation resulting in accidental death?" the chief asked, posing the most critical question after hearing the analysis. Mike raised his hand and continued, "Probably not. I investigated the victim's phone, and I discovered something strange after getting the results. Despite the horrific situation, the victim didn't use his phone to seek help from anyone. Moreover, his fingerprints were found on the emergency rescue button inside the elevator, but the property management claimed they didn't receive any distress calls from him that night. If we assume that the equipment malfunctioned, it can be explained. However, under normal phone communication, he didn't make an emergency call, but logged into a social media app. The last response was at 7:21 in the morning, which is 4.5 hours after the estimated time of death. So how did he manage to write an apology letter to his idol after his death?" Mike's analysis made everyone break out in a cold sweat, but the surveillance in the conference room flickered with faint light. After the meeting, Mike and Tom left in the elevator. Suddenly, Mike said, "In any case, let's go talk to that idol named Amelia." But as soon as Mike finished speaking, the lights in the elevator went out, followed by violent shaking. When everything calmed down, the elevator happened to stop at a position misaligned with the ground, leaving only a narrow gap barely enough for one person to crawl out. At the same time, Tom received an anonymous text message on his phone, which boldly stated, "Stay away from Amelia." He showed the contents of the message to Mike, who chuckled after reading it. "This is getting interesting," he said. "For safety reasons, I investigated the elevator control room, but didn't find any traces of anyone entering. It was all for nothing." After escaping from the elevator, Tom found Mike on the rooftop. However, when he took out his phone to investigate the text message as a clue, he found that the message had disappeared. "How is that possible? I took the photo and saved it in the cloud. Why did they all disappear?" Mike took a deep breath and said, "Well, there's nothing we can do now. It seems like we need to find some help. We can only go find the legendary Bruce." Watching Mike walk away, Tom asked quietly behind him, "Does Bruce really exist?" On a rainy night, Amelia found herself inexplicably near the railroad track where the accident occurred. In the next moment, the deceased members of the Aurora crew reached out and grabbed her legs tightly. Amelia woke up from the nightmare, gasping for breath. Although she never wished for those people to die, this nightmare has been haunting her. It was at this moment that Amelia's phone rang. It was a call from a teammate. "Amelia, quickly take a look at our YouTube account. Something big is happening." After hanging up the phone, Amelia immediately opened the platform account. But then, she was shocked to find that the latest music video from her idol group on YouTube had already reached 10 billion views. This data made Amelia unable to believe her own eyes. However, when she searched for information about other idol groups, she found that all their accounts had been banned. After Amelia's group skyrocketed overnight, the television station immediately reported on this event. We as cared YouTube headquarters about the situation, but the response we received was that the system was functioning normally. In other words, there really were that many people who watched the video and reached 10 billion views. It's hard to believe. By the way, so far, the record for the highest number of views is held by an American singer group, but even so, they only have 5 billion views. Then, a veteran entertainment industry teacher appeared on the TV screen, jokingly saying, "Just for this topic, I also watched that MV. But no matter the song, singing SK Hills, or dancing, they all seemed very immature, like children playing in a kindergarten. It's laughable that something like this could receive 10 billion views." At that moment, a steel cable above the live broadcast room suddenly snapped, and hit the judge teacher, and then the TV. Content was immediately switched to an advertisement page. Inside the arcade, as the word winner appeared on the screen, the man who had just won the battle shouted with excitement. However, the white-haired young man he had battled against had a face filled with melancholy as he dragged himself over. "You lost again, Mr. Loser," mocked the girl next to the white-haired young man. But just then, a group of police officers stormed into the arcade, surrounding the few individuals instantly. The chief walked through the crowd and lowered his head to speak to the young man and the girl, saying, "I apologize for interrupting, but please assist us with the investigation, Mr. Bruce." However, the white-haired young man, known as Bruce, ignored the chief's request and called out to his opponent from the game they had just played together. "Let's play another round, please." Seeing the opponent's hesitant expression, Bruce continued, "It's okay, he'll cover the money." But when he reached into his pocket, it was cleaner than his face. He couldn't even take out a single cent. Seeing this, the chief immediately understood, and handed over 5,000 yen with a flirtatious look on his face. Tom discreetly leaned closer to Mike's ear and whispered, "Is this guy really the legendary Bruce? He just seems like a dim-witted hoodlum." After hearing this, Mike quietly replied, "There was once a religious group that wanted to create a true medium. They made pregnant female followers consume all sorts of drugs and conducted various experiments. But the result was that all he babies born prematurely or suffered miscarriages, and were deformed and dead, except for a pair of conjoined twins with their heads merged together. Of course, this is also the first case of brain partial separation surgery in Japan. But what I am saying is just rumors. The specific birth date, names, and nationalities of the twins are unknown. But one thing is for sure, when they are together, they become Bruce. Whenever they are together, They can see things that we can't see. They are also top private detectives in the country. At this time, Bruce's opponent in the game is also beginning to notice the changes. Even though Bruce was just a novice a while ago, he is now dominating his opponent. That's BEC. O's Bruce and his sister teamed up, and input complex and powerful combo moves. After perfectly defeating their opponent, Bruce stood up and followed the police out of the arcade. In the police station, the chief handed over the information about the incident to Bruce. Then he added that there have been many strange accidents recently. At first glance, they seem like mere accidents, but further investigation reveals something suspicious. First, there was the convenience store manager, who had his neck broken by the rolling shutter, even though there were safety devices in place. Then, there was the train driver with good visibility and safety devices, but the brakes suddenly failed, and he collided with an idle group's vehicle. There was also the office worker, whose body was torn apart by the elevator while riding it. And the teacher on a TV show, who got his head smashed. Listening to the chief's rambling words, Bruce frowned and asked his sister Kayla, which do you think is better? Without much thought, Kayla replied, I think the mountains are better. Hearing her answer, Bruce covered his forehead and said in pain, yeah, the mountains are indeed better than the sea. So, Mr. Policeman, let's go mountain climbing. Let's go to the mountains in the north. Everything in front of Amelia filled her with fear. She had been standing in front of the zebra crossing for 10 minutes, motionless. And during this time, the traffic light kept blinking green. Only that, since today until now, Amelia hasn't seen a single Kayla light. Could it be that someone is surveilling and controlling the Kayla traffic light? When this thought occurred to Amelia, it compelled her to want to escape as soon as possible. But no matter where Amelia went, the green light followed her. Due to the sudden change of the traffic light, there was a loud noise and a fierce traffic accident happened again right in front of Amelia's eyes. Not long after, a blaze of fire was reflected in Amelia's pupils, and the surveillance behind her remained silent. At the foot of a mountain in northern Japan, as Bruce took steps forward, a group of police officers also appeared here with mountaineering gear. Then Bruce took out a big bag and said to everyone, please hand over your mobile phones, tablets, headphones, and electromagnetic watches, and put all devices that might be interfered with by radio waves and electromagnetic waves into the bag. Just as everyone was handing over their items, Kayla suddenly pointed at police officer Jack and said, you can't stay here, please go back. Upon hearing this, Jack immediately became angry, and asked, what did you say? You brought us here without any explanation, and now you want me to leave. You better explain yourself right now. At that moment, Bruce, who was protective of his sister, stepped in front of Kayla and pointed at Jack's heart, saying, you have a device here, don't you? Bruce's words silenced the crowd. Officer Mike then confirmed Bruce's assumption because Jack indeed had a pacemaker implanted in his body. Bruce first apologized to Jack and then explained his intentions for the operation. Just to be safe, I want to eliminate all electronic devic. Yes, because this may be an unprecedented event for humanity. Unless you can remove the pacemaker here, please go back. After all electronic devices were stored, Bruce and the police officers headed towards the depths of the mountain. After a climb, Bruce, who was at the back of he group, suddenly spoke up, saying, please continue moving forward while listening to me. Also, do not look at me. Just keep walking like this. There may be something in the sky watching us, even if we didn't hear the sound of a helicopter. We can't rule out the possibility of a DR-1 or a man-made satellite. It seems likely that the enemy has interfered with electronic devices. We have no way of knowing until we narrow down the investigation area and understand their methods. So, please do not underestimate our enemy this time. Hearing Bruce's analysis, Kerr sarcastically commented, isn't that not an enemy, but a criminal? Bruce did not accept Mike's correction and continued, can't we call it a criminal even, if the target of the investigation is not human? Just like the incident where a train collided with a van at a crossing. The van that entered the crossing just stopped, while the train barged in and collided with it without any hesitation. In other words, both the obstacle detection device at the crossing and the braking assist M on the train malfunctioned simultaneously, causing the collision. However, the probability of such an accident is impossible. If it wasn't an accident, it would require invasion and manipulation at the precise moment. This is something that humans cannot do since no one can simultaneously and swiftly perform these operations. But after watching this series of accidents, we can only think that it was done by humans. Yet, intentionally cutting off the face during live broadcasting, and intentionally tearing the body apart for 6 hours feels unnecessary and he does not resemble artificial intelligence at all. In other words, he is neither human nor mechanical. However, if we turn this statement around, he may be an entity with both human and mechanical characteristics. In that case, everything makes sense.